Hello everyone. Today we are taking a deep dive into this Reuters story, US officials eye government stakes in AI companies, notice reports. We are going to break down exactly what happened here and what it could mean for every investor paying attention. But before that, you are watching Decode Daily News, where we take the biggest business and finance stories and decode them so anyone can understand. If you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now. So let us get into it. Senior US officials held preliminary discussions with major AI companies, so that line really caught my attention. And here is why this is not some fringe idea being floated by a random think tank. These are senior officials inside the US government sitting down with the biggest AI companies in the world. That word senior is doing a lot of work here. This is not a junior staffer exploring ideas. This is people with real authority having real conversations. And that alone should get your attention. Let us see what is written ahead in this same news paragraph about the potential for the government to buy some shares in their firms. Pause right there, buy some shares. That is the phrase that changes the entire nature of this story. This is not about regulation. This is not about oversight committees or policy guidelines. This is about ownership. The government potentially becoming a shareholder in the most powerful private technology companies in the world. That is a fundamentally different kind of relationship. And then came the part that says it all. Digital news outlet Notice reported on Thursday, citing 3 people familiar with the matter. Now sit with that for a second. 3 people familiar with the matter. That is the sourcing behind this story, and Reuters could not immediately confirm it. So right now, this is a report about discussions, not a decision, not a policy, not a signed agreement. But here is the thing about markets: a credible rumor at this level moves faster than a confirmed fact. And for anyone watching AY stocks, that matters. And the very next line makes it even more interesting. While the planning is ongoing and details are in flux, and think about what that actually means. Planning is ongoing. Details are in flux. That is the language of a conversation that has not landed anywhere yet. No law, no policy, no agreement, just discussions. But discussions between senior government officials and the biggest AI companies in the world do not stay discussions forever. The direction of travel here is becoming very clear. And right after that comes the part that really matters. Discussions have centered on having the firms voluntarily cede the shares to the government. And here is what that really tells you. Voluntarily cede. Think carefully about what that phrase is doing. No one is forcing anything, at least not yet. But when the government is sitting across the table from you, the word voluntary takes on a very specific meaning. These companies need regulatory goodwill. They need government contracts. They operate inside a policy environment that Washington controls. The pressure to cooperate even without a legal mandate is very real. Now this is the part I could not move past. The returns on the investment could then be directed to public purposes. And that is not a small thing. Public purposes. That framing is very deliberate. It is designed to make this feel generous, like the government is doing something for ordinary people. And maybe it is. But the mechanism matters enormously. Giving the government equity in private companies is a structural change, not a one-time gesture. And structural changes have consequences that take years to fully understand. And now look at what comes right after, such as distributing a dividend payment to all American households, the report said. Now let that sink in. A dividend to every American household funded by equity stakes in AY companies. On the surface, that sounds like a way to make sure regular people benefit from the AI boom and not just venture capitalists and tech billionaires. But here is what that actually means for these companies. It means a permanent government presence on their cap table. And that changes everything about how they operate, who they answer to, and how attractive they look to private investors going forward. Here is the piece that reframes everything. The report comes as OpenAI and Anthropic prepare for blockbuster initial public offerings. And that part is worth sitting with. The timing here is not a coincidence, it is the story. These companies are weeks or months away from going public. They are in the most sensitive phase of their corporate lives. Every detail about their ownership structure, their governance, their investor relationships, all of it is being scrutinized right now. And into that moment comes a report that the government may want equity. If you are a private investor considering these IPOs, this report just introduced a variable you had not priced in. But the story does not stop there. OpenAI is preparing to confidentially file for an IPO. Reuters previously reported, and here is what that really tells you. OpenAI confidentially filing means the process is already in motion. This is not a someday plan, this is happening. And confidential filings are specifically designed to give companies flexibility before they go fully public. The fact that this equity discussion is surfacing right now during that window is something serious investors need to pay attention to. And then came the detail that changes the picture completely. While Anthropic, which makes Claude, confidentially filed for a US IPO on Monday. Pause right there. Monday. Anthropic filed Monday. This report dropped Thursday, 4 days apart. And the report specifically notes that Anthropic is not having conversations with the administration about providing equity to the government. So these two companies, the two biggest names in AI right now, are heading into their public offerings from completely different positions on this question. That gap is worth watching very closely. But that was just the beginning. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has discussed the idea with government officials. And think about what that actually means. Altman did not stumble into this conversation. He walked into it deliberately. He has been actively engaged with government officials on this idea, which means this is not a government proposal being pushed onto a reluctant company. At least in OpenAI's case, this is a founder who sees real strategic value in building a close relationship with Washington. And this is where it gets really interesting. Since President Donald Trump began his second term, the report said. Now let that sink in. Since the second term began. That is months of ongoing discussion at the highest levels of government. This is not a casual conversation that happened once. This is a sustained, deliberate engagement. And that tells you something important. Whatever comes out of this, OpenAI has been actively shaping it from the inside. Now this is the part I could not move past. Altman first pitched the concept directly to Trump in a conversation in 2025. And here is what that really tells you. He pitched it directly to Trump. Not to a staffer, not to a committee, directly to the president. That is not a bureaucratic conversation. That is a founder making a strategic move at the highest level possible. And the fact that Trump engaged with it seriously enough for the conversation to continue, that tells you this idea has real momentum at the very top. And the follow-through tells you even more, and has discussed it again with senior administration officials in recent weeks. And that part is worth sitting with, in recent weeks. This is not a story about something that happened months ago and faded away. This is active, ongoing, right now. Senior administration officials are in the room, which means whatever comes next, and something will come next, it is going to come sooner than most people expect. Now look at what happened just days before this report. Trump signed an executive order on Tuesday asking leading AI developers to voluntarily submit their most capable models. And think about what that actually means. 2 major moves in 1 week. An executive order on Tuesday. Equity discussions surfacing on Thursday. The government is not tiptoeing around AI anymore. It is moving on multiple fronts simultaneously. And notice that word again, voluntarily. The government keeps using it. But a voluntary request from a sitting president carries a very different weight than a casual suggestion from a friend. And that brings us to what really matters here, for government cybersecurity tests before releasing them to the public. And here is what that really tells you. Before releasing them to the public. That is the key phrase. The government wants to see these models before the rest of us do. That is a meaningful form of oversight that simply did not exist before. And combined with the equity discussion, you are starting to see the outline of a much closer relationship between Washington and the AI industry. Whether that is good or bad depends entirely on how it gets managed. And there is one more piece that makes all of this feel very real. The administration said in May it would take $2 billion in equity stakes across 9 quantum computing firms. Now sit with that for a second. This is not theoretical anymore. The government has already done this in quantum computing. $2 billion, 9 firms, equity stakes already taken. That is the precedent that makes the AI version of this story feel very plausible. When a government has already established a playbook in one emerging technology sector, you have to take seriously the possibility that they are about to run the exact same play in another. So, that is exactly where my take comes in. But real quick, before I give you my take, this video is for educational purposes only, not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. So what we are watching here is something genuinely new. Governments taking equity in private tech companies is not unheard of. Sovereign wealth funds do it all the time. But a democratic government taking stakes in domestic private companies as a structural policy, that is a different model. And it creates a tension that does not resolve easily. On one side, there is a real argument that the public should share in the gains of a technology that was built, in large part, on publicly funded research. The internet, GPS, touchscreens, the origins of these technologies trace back to government investment. AI is not entirely different. On the other side, every dollar of government equity is a dollar of government influence. What models get built? What risks get taken? What gets prioritized? That is not automatically bad, but it is a factor that private investors have never had to price into AI stocks before. And once that factor is in the equation, it does not come out easily. So if you are paying attention to AI investments right now, and you should be, this story is worth tracking carefully. Not because anything is decided, but because the direction of travel is becoming clearer every week. And in investing, direction often matters more than destination. If you found this breakdown useful, hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode of Decode Daily News. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Do you think American households should get a dividend from AI company profits? Or does government equity in private tech companies concern you? Drop your thoughts below.